Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thank you all again. I think we have one more person who signed up, but um, if he makes it, he'll be a little late. My name is Kelly Bennett. I'm the staff person for the City County Public Art Commission, and I'm also joined by planning staff Steve Smotherman. And we're just going to kind of go through this plan. Feel free to raise your hand or type in some questions, and at the end of each section, I'll try and answer your questions. So today we're going to take a closer look at our draft public art plan. This is something that the Public Art Commission has been working on for probably a year and a half now. We've had some public input sessions, and the Public Art Commission has met at their public meetings to discuss this and set an agenda for the next 10 years for city and county public art investments. It has a vision that are the guiding principles of the plan, and then the goals and actions to achieve that vision, and then project recommendations, which are generally locations and ideas for public art projects. So very basic question, what is public art? It's just art in public spaces, but it's more important than that. It's really about what we choose to display on our public property and what that says about us as a community. It can display our collective past, present, and future, where we've been, where do we want to go, and it can build connections, convey knowledge, create experiences, and transform spaces into more meaningful places and make us a stronger community. There's an economic case for public art. Really, it defines this sense of place and creates pride in community. I'm fond of telling people, when we have more pride in our community, we invest more in our community. People want to stay here. People want to make the most of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County when they're proud of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County, and having good public art can really help with that. It attracts visitors, it increases foot traffic downtown. It kind of makes our place a more pleasant place to visit. And then, investment in public art, it's also an investment in local jobs. You can see on this photo here, the artist is not in this picture, but people who are installing the art are local people who work to get that in place. The recent study showed that public art projects with large budgets over $150,000 redistribute 2/3 to 3/4 of that budget back into the local economy. We've been seeing that with one of our projects called the WinstonSalem Portrait Project. It's a $200,000 project, and a lot of that money has been spent in the local community, including the person who's actually building the sculpture, fabricating that sculpture is a local person, even though the lead artists are not from Winston-Salem. So what is the Public Art Commission? This is a group that's appointed by the City Council and the County Commissioners to create public art projects. It's 10 members, arts professionals mostly, civic and business, and community leaders. The mission statement is to cultivate innovative, dynamic, and engaging public art that will illuminate the perspectives, relationships, and narratives of our community. So it's really, they're not just trying to create pleasant murals. It's really a bigger picture than that. here are some of the recent projects they've worked on. This one was just completed this summer by a local artist, Hieronymus, at the Winston-Salem Fairgrounds Farmers Market. This one is rolling out very soon. It's part of our artistic bus shelter project. And this is Hosanna Gorley, and she's also from Winston-Salem. And this is one of 12 bus shelters that we're going to be rolling out starting this Sunday. So by the end of the month, hopefully they'll all be installed. Here's another bus shelter by Carlos Gustavo. And the Public Art Commission helped with the Benton Convention Center getting 11 pieces of art for that facility before it opened in 2017. This one is by Dennis Wells. And it's a portrait of Maya Angelou that's made of her quotes. Again, the library sculpture, this is a big steel sculpture of a book outside the library, and it says library in many, many languages. And then our largest piece is our Otter Tank off of Peters Creek Parkway, done by the artist Das, who I just think it was really remarkable. This is a sketch that he made beforehand of what the tank was going to look like, and it looks exactly like his sketch. So that was something that he painted about 3 weeks. It was really, really impressive. The Winston-Salem Portrait Project, this is something that we're going to have installed next year. This has been an ongoing project. It's been going on for more than a year now, and it's a community engaged project where people from all over the city nominated people to have their portraits taken to be on this steel sculpture that's going to go along the strollway, near the strollway bridge that will be going over Salem Parkway, formerly Business 40. It'll look kind of like this. And that's being fabricated as we speak. Before we get to the public art vision, does anybody have any questions just on the background here? Okay, I don't see any hands raised or anything in the chat. So I'll go on to the public vision, the public art vision. And this is like the big picture. This is kind of boiled down. This is what the Public Art Commission wants the plan to do. I'll read it. We will continue to add large-scale public art pieces to downtown Winston-Salem, but we will also create art for our many neighborhoods, parks, and community facilities. We will create public art that reflects our diverse community, and this balance between our many neighborhoods is crucial that public art not be used to cause gentrification and displacement in minority neighborhoods. We will grow our public art ecosystem of local artists, fabricators, and other support industries into a regional leader. We will collaborate with community organizations who share our goals of bringing more public art to Winston-Salem and Forsyth County, and we will care for, maintain, and instill pride in our growing public art collection. And then these are the types of public art that they'd like to work on. So it's not just murals and sculptures, although those will certainly be part of public art. Iconic, this is your statues and sculptures. You could see, an early, I could picture this as an early selfie with the Mickey coffee pot downtown. There's R.J. Reynolds on his horse. Another example of this is this sculpture in a traffic circle in Malaysia. this piece in Kansas City. And then participatory public art that invites the public to take part. This is Fannie Ali. It's an exquisite corpse sculpture. It's portraits of people from this neighborhood. And it's, you know, you can move those boxes, spin them around. Gail, I see your question about how we fund public art. Well, I'm going to get to that shortly. The Winston-Salem Portrait Project is another participatory piece. Here's another one. Educational. This is really, this is a piece that used the Pottery Park landfill in downtown Manhattan. This artist planted wheat there to kind of show, you know, the natural environment, and I think they actually harvested this wheat and made bread from it. Hosanna Gorley's piece is certainly educational, and then some that are responsive to place. This is Patrick Dougherty. He's been highlighted recently by Sika, as he had one of his early shows there. Janet Aikelman, this one's in Boston. The city of Greensboro also has one of her pieces downtown. And then this is an interesting piece that kind of uses the air blown by the subway in New York for, you know, a really fun temporary piece. This one's a giraffe, a dragon. And then enhanced public facilities, such as our Otter Tank, you know, that can be in parks. This is a parking garage in Durham that's at a major intersection, so they wanted to brighten up this area. This is a really interesting piece. This was in a neighborhood in York, Kentucky. Had seen a lot of decline, and the participating neighbors wanted to, when the artists came there, they asked the neighbors, what could you really use here? And they said a performance space. So this artist took this house that was going to be demolished and used all of the pieces to turn it into something that looks like a house that can be unfolded and turned into a performance space. And then it can be folded back up when it's done. So public art funding. This table shows some of our peer cities, mostly around the state, but then other nearby states, cities that are about the same size as Winston-Salem. It shows how much staff they have, what their budget is, and then whether they have something called percent for art, and then how many projects they're able to accomplish a year. Winston-Salem's, Forsyth County's budget was before the coronavirus, all these numbers are pre-coronavirus, was $55,000 a year from the city budget. And that was paid for with the hotel occupancy tax. It's a tax paid on hotel rooms. So as you can imagine, there aren't a lot of people staying in hotels in Winston-Salem and Forsyth County right now. So this money has not been coming in. So we don't have an additional budget this year, but we do have some projects in the pipeline, and we do have a little money that we've saved over the years. A lot of places will have an annual budget, and then they'll have what's called percent for art, and that is for projects that are capital projects. think, you know, our bonds that we have every few years or so, where the city or the county will go out and they will say, we have a number of projects, and the voters vote whether they want to borrow money to pay for those projects. And they're usually in the categories of parks and recreation, housing, things, you know, transportation, things like that. And what a lot of communities do is they will reserve 1% of those project costs for public art. So for, you know, say a park, it would have to be for a project that could incorporate public art into it. So that would, you know, it would have to be a park or a streetscape project or something like that. That's something that some communities do, and you can see that it really brings up the number of projects that you can do a year. And it's convenient because it's explicitly approved by the public whenever the bonds are approved. But there's a need for both of these funding tracks, because percent for art is typically used for new projects, for new parks or new renovations of parks, while a public art budget that's, say, paid for through the occupancy tax would be used for, you know, existing areas of the city or that aren't undergoing renovation. I see a question for Gail. One time we had a 1% of construction set aside for public art at Innovation Quarter that mysteriously disappeared. Wondering about a set aside for any new construction projects that get city or county incentives. Could we advocate for that? That seems like it could be a good idea that get county incentives. So these wouldn't be for bond projects, but it would be for a project that you know, is getting certain jobs or getting funding from the city for jobs. So that could be an interesting funding mechanism too. I'll write that down. Okay, does anybody else have any questions before I move on to our goals and actions? Hi. George says, please let Art Nouveau know how we can help. I will do that. Yeah, and then that's Art Nouveau is kind of the young professionals group, part of the Arts Council. I was part of that group a few years ago, and it's a great group. And yes, we need to do more outreach to community groups. Okay, now goals and actions. This is kind of the meat of the plan. Each goal will have kind of an action agenda under it. So we'll have the big picture goal, and then what we are asking the city council, the county commissioners, or the public art commission to do in order to get to that goal. So goal number 1, include public art in future city and county investments such as parks, libraries, recreation centers, greenways, and streetscape improvements. This is percent for art. That is what percent for art does. So action 1.1, 1.2 are the Winston-Salem City Council should consider adopting percent for art ordinance that reserves 1% for capital improvement funds for public art, for city parks, recreation centers, greenways, and streetscape improvements. So if this plan is adopted by the Public Art Commission and then adopted by the City Council, something that we will do will be to go to the city council with a percent for art ordinance and ask them to consider approving that. And then 1.2 is a similar ask to the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners for a 1/10 to 1/4% of art ordinance for public art in new county facilities. The reason why we're asking for less is typically because the county has funded several public art projects, and how they do it is through a donation mechanism. You know, somebody might, for instance, put their name on a brick or something like that, or they might have naming rights to a room at the library, and they raise money for things like public art and other improvements that are beyond the scope of work for something like that facility. And then also just because, you know, when we think of county projects, they're usually really, really big, you know, like I believe the budget for the $90 million new courthouse. I could see there being some pushbacks to say we should reserve $900,000 for public art for the new courthouse, even though that would be 1%. That would be really a really difficult ask. And then, so Gail says the Helix sculpture in the Innovation Quarter dedicated to Doug Maynard was funding through the 1% set aside for the first buildings in the park. So can be and has been done. And that is, I can see that right outside my window. And yes, that's an excellent example for a project. It's a sculpture that's reminiscent of DNA strands and is a central point on the edge of the Innovation Quarter. So that's a good example of how that can work. Goal 2, increase public art funding for projects at existing parks, greenways, libraries, municipal buildings, downtown Winston-Salem, and neighborhoods. And then the actions would be consider increasing public art funding in the city's annual budget, consider funding county public art projects with an annual budget, and then continue to leverage funding contributions from city and county departments to contribute to art projects, such as adding to the utility division's planned budgets for painting water tanks to include murals. This is, you know, something that we will certainly be looking to work with different departments for. Work with SECA, the Enrichment Center, and other organizations that express interest in working with the Public Art Commission to place existing public art on city or county property. And you know, these organizations have artwork that maybe they haven't displayed on their property or their campus. And if they would like to put that out into the public realm, we should talk to them about doing that on city and county property. 2.5 is research ordinance and code changes that could fund public art as part of new development over a certain cost threshold in downtown Winston-Salem. So if, you know, somebody's spending over whatever, $5 million, let's say, to build something new downtown, you know, we might have an ordinance that says if you're going to do that, part of that investment needs to be in public art. And that's something that would have to go to the city council. And then 2.6 is consider facilitating public art projects that are fully or partially paid for by private entities such as building developers. And this is actually something that we're doing. We're going to be rolling this out very soon. We're going to put a piece of sculpture on the corner of 4th and Spruce Streets that's going to be partially paid for by the Link Apartments group, Grub Properties, who's putting a building there, and so they asked if they could help pay for some art downtown. And we said Yes. And then Gail's idea of incentives might be something, you know, that we could consider putting in there, that the Public Art Commission could consider adding to this section. Goal 3, and you know, this is a really important section of the plan. Help foster a local public art economy that develops local artists, fabricators, and other related businesses. You know, we've found, you know, we have a strong arts community here that works mainly in the fine arts, who, you know, who does kind of smaller scale artwork, who doesn't have necessarily the experience to do larger scale projects like your 50-foot tall curved water tank is a big leap from even doing you know, a 10-foot tall mural. So we're looking to get people more experience that we can find local people to do those bigger and bigger public art pieces. So how do we get there? 3.1, structure public art projects in a way that encourages artists to hire fabricators and other support services locally in order to help build a local public art ecosystem, kind of like the Winston-Salem Portrait project is doing. To work with local maker spaces to recruit potential public art fabricators and other tradespeople to work on public art projects. 3, create a reference list of local fabricators and other related tradespeople that artists can use when making hiring decisions for public art projects. 4, hold workshops and portfolio reviews to help guide artists through the public art application process. Use city recreation centers and libraries in African American neighborhoods to reach local minority artists. 5, pair experienced artists with less experienced local artists as part of a mentorship initiative. 6, create an avenue to review artist-initiated public art projects that are not the result of an artist call. So if you have a great idea or a good idea, it doesn't have to necessarily be great, you can apply. We have a standing application on our website. You can apply, and you know, the Public Art Commission will consider that project. And then 7, create a website that pairs local artists with private property owners who are searching for muralists or other public artists. And this kind of came out of a conversation with somebody who owns a lot of property north of downtown, and was looking for muralists to paint his property. And then 8, avoid projects that seek to solely compensate artists with the publicity they will gain from working on a public art project. So we want to make sure artists are paid for their work. Okay, goal 4, raise community awareness of the City County Public Art Program, brand the Public Art Commission to raise community awareness. And this, you know, this is coming on slowly. As we finish projects, we want to kind of roll them out and let people know this is something that the Public Art Commission has done. Create a map that can help interested citizens tour public art. This map to the right is actually the map for our artistic bus shelters that are going to be installed in the next couple of weeks. The first 6 are going in someday, so take a look at that. I think the Journal is going to have a piece on Sunday that shows all that artwork. 3, show citizens the arts investments they've already made by engaging with established public art, not just unveilings for new public art. And 4, put Winston-Salem on the public art map by commissioning an iconic piece of public art by a high-profile artist. And then 5, care for and manage our growing public art collection. This hadn't really been a problem because everything we had was brand new until we realized, oh, the city owns this iconic piece of public art behind the transit station. You know, it wasn't really on our radar because we hadn't worked on this. That's Mr. Imagination's memory wall that has really seen some hard times. And so we're looking, we actually have a call to artists out right now to find somebody or a team of somebody's to help do a light restoration for this piece. The actions under this goal are create a policy that sets expectations for artwork lifespans that can be used in the future to help determine if a piece of public art should be restored or removed from the public art collection. You know, this will really apply to murals. You know, a mural is not going to last forever. So we need to kind of set an expectation. You know, is this mural going to be here for 10 years, 15 years? Or, you know, in the case of Artivity on the Green, the art park that's run by Art for Art's Sake, they have a set of murals, and I think they paint over those every year or so. Fund public art maintenance on a fund public art maintenance and collection care on a project by project basis. This is just so that we don't tie up our funds that we could be using to hire artists to create new art, and you know, by having a bank account that just sits there for the next 10 years as we wait for our existing art to, you know, to deteriorate. So we'll kind of in the next 10 years we'll probably need to start doing that, but we don't right now. And 3, create a policy for commission funded murals or artworks located on private property that would require an easement or a deed restriction in order to preserve the artwork for a predetermined period of time. So if we work with somebody to put a mural up on a building downtown, we want to know, you know, if you sell this building or you lease it to somebody else, you don't paint over this mural. So we want something in place legally so the mural that we paid for with city money doesn't disappear one day. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on goals and actions? Anything to add? I will say that if you are thinking of something and want to share it, and it doesn't come to you immediately, we have our website, cityofws.org/public art. There's a link to a survey on there, and you can take that survey, and you can add things to it. You can say, oh, I have a really good idea for goal 2, you know, on how to fund public art. If you want to share that with us, you can do it in the survey, or you can email me. kellyb@cityofws.org. All right. So I don't see any hands going up, and I don't see any questions. So I'm going to move on to public art projects for the next decade. There's a lot of public art projects in here. So I will just put in the big asterisk that says at current staffing and pre-coronavirus funding levels, we're likely to complete 12 to 15 public art projects over the next 10 years. We have some in the hopper that are going to be coming out, so we're already working on some. And I should say that, you know, our bus shelter project, which is 12 pieces of art on bus shelters around the city, we consider that to be one project, not 12. So we can have a big footprint with projects like that. But then with the recommended larger budget allocations and or a percent for art ordinance, we could increase that to 25 to 30 projects, just kind of depending on funding, you know. Our staffing levels right now, it's just me. This is part of my job. But if we had a larger budget, we might be able to hire a consultant or somebody who wanted to project manage some projects if we had a lot going on. So public art projects for the next decade. You know, we're looking at, you know, for downtown, your Marshall Park, Caladium, you know, the Benton Convention Center still has some big walls in there that could use some art. You know, parking decks are really good places for public art because they're just, you know, a dead gray wall typically, and you can really go a long way doing a mural on the side of a parking deck. Water tanks, another good place. And then the strollway, you know, that north-south pedestrian connection. It's another great place for public art, especially where it crosses Brookstown, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Street. You know, doing artistic crosswalks where the strollway crosses would be a good way to connect that path to the larger city and just let people know that they can walk down there. And then, of course, there's many prominent walls around downtown that could be primed for murals. Even though the city doesn't own them, it could be an agreement with the building owner if they wanted to partially fund it or something like that. Parks, you know, 80 city parks, 9 county parks, 14 greenways. This is a picture from Raleigh of an artist who kind of casts these pieces. I think they're made of like concrete and like the red clay from our North Carolina soil, and makes these large pieces. There's one in Kinston too. That's really fabulous. Community gateways. Every time I drive up 52, I see this water tank, and it needs a mural. There's a circle in front of Union Station, the train station that the city recently rehabilitated. There are traffic circles all around town. There's one at 3rd and Research Parkway that's pretty prominent. That's a gateway to downtown. Liberty Street, the Research Parkway Railroad overpass. If you're coming into town from the south on Research Parkway, it's kind of like a banner for the city that could really use a mural. The Church Street parking deck. These are all places that are kind of coming into our community that could use that treatment. There are a lot of significant people in our community. Could be a really neat way to honor them with public art. Of course, public facilities, City Hall, County Government Center. This is George Black, the brick maker, with a statue in front of the county government building. And then commissions had some ideas for some special projects, one called Making the Invisible Visible. These could be like educational pieces that show the history or the science of an area. You know, not many people know, or maybe a lot of people know, that there are these freshwater jellyfish that live in our quarry. Quarry Park could be a neat public art interpretive of the jellyfish. And they're just, you know, there are lots and lots and lots of opportunities for this all over the city, for a city that has amazing history you could overlay public art to teach that history. And then places where we're divided, creative corridors, twin arches. This is a symbol of our racially and economically divided city. Bring it together on 52, which decimated a lot of African-American neighborhoods. Where else can we do that? Are there projects that could bring back that history or kind of seek to bring us together in the way that piece of art does? And then other initiatives, I said the artist-initiated projects where people can apply. We could do traffic signal boxes, which are those silver boxes. They're around downtown. They're in a lot of neighborhoods. We could set up a program possibly to pair up artists with those. Perhaps a neighborhood placemaking grant where we have a little bit of money set aside and a neighborhood could have a local artist do a piece there. Of course, bus shelters. Our project now for artistic bus shelters is using existing bus shelters and putting art into them. But down the road, we'd like to do a project that creates new bus shelters. This one's really neat. I believe this is in Baltimore. It's probably not great at actually sheltering anybody, maybe except in the B, but it's definitely an interesting piece of public art. And then crosswalks too, artistic crosswalks, especially in downtown or in neighborhood centers where you could have a crosswalk and you could paint that in an artistic way. So I think that is it for those projects. Again, if you have any questions, you can ask them in the chat, ask them in the questions bar, you can raise your hand. The plan, based on these meetings, we have a couple more. We're going to have an in-person one tonight at the Anderson Recreation Center at 6 o'clock. We're going to have one at Haynes Hosiery Community Center at 6 o'clock next Tuesday. And then we're going to have another virtual meeting at 6 o'clock next Thursday. And you can see all those at cityofws.org/publicart. So the plan will probably be tweaked a little bit based on public comments from these meetings. And then the Public Art Commission is planning to have a public hearing on the plan at their October 6th meeting. From there, it would go to City Council and the County Commissioners for their consideration. Does anybody have any questions? All right. Well, seeing no questions, I want to thank you all for coming. Yes, George, there will be a recording of this, and I'm going to post it on our website. If it's not up there today, it'll be up there in the next day or so, and it'll be at that cityofws.org/publicart page. Does anybody else have any questions? All right. Well, thank you all very much. I greatly appreciate you participating and asking questions. And please pass this on to anybody else you think will be interested. Like I said, we have 3 more meetings. And thank you, Allison. And I'll see you all later.